It is an honor for me to introduce our next speaker. William J. Murray is the chairman of the Religious Freedom Coalition, a nonprofit organization in Washington, D.C., active on issues related to aiding Christians in Islamic and communist nations. William J. Murray is the author of several books, including Let Us Pray and The Church is Not for Perfect People. His most recent book is The Pledge, One Nation Under God, for which the foreword, a Washington, D.C. insider, was written by Congressman Todd Akin. Please help me welcome William J. Murray.
Thank you very much. It's so good to be here and see those that have turned out in solidarity with the Iraqi Christians and other minorities that have faced such devastation over the last decade. Before I begin my remarks, I would note something that the Lord said about the $200 billion that the United States has spent, and perhaps why the United States doesn't speak out as much as it should. The reality is that 40% of that $200 billion that was spent in Iraq was borrowed from some of the worst offenders of human rights in the world, from the wealthy Islamic nations and from China. And as long as the United States remains a debtor nation, we have a great deal of difficulty speaking out against those who we borrow our money from in order to keep our aircraft carriers afloat. On Sunday, November 1st, terrorists, Islamic terrorists from a group called the Islamic State of Iraq, stormed Our Lady of Salvation Syriac Catholic Church in Baghdad. Their first act was to murder 2 Catholic priests with shots to the head. The few American media outlets reporting on the attack, including Fox News, said it was a part of an attack on the Iraqi stock exchange. That wasn't true. The reality was that a car bomb was exploded at dusk near the exchange when it was already closed. This was a diversion to lure guards away from the church. The real target was the church. The attackers had explosives and wore suicide vests. The attack came during a traditional time of Catholic Mass when 120 worshippers were in the church. Most media in the United States didn't report the full extent of the bloodbath. However, some European outlets, news outlets, did in detail talk about how 62 died and 78 others were injured. Many of those who survived the bombs lost limbs, were paralyzed for life, or suffered other serious injuries. The White House issued a generic statement on the attack that I am actually, as an American, ashamed of. This was part of the statement, the core of the statement that the White House issued on the attack. The United States strongly condemns this senseless act of hostage-taking and violence by terrorists linked to al-Qaeda in Iraq that occurred on Sunday in Baghdad, killing so many innocent Iraqis. The White House refused to recognize the fact publicly that the terrorists were Muslims and that the victims were Christians and that the attack came in a church. Since the beginning of the Second Gulf War, the church, unfortunately, in the West has been silent as persecutions of Christians in Iraq escalated. Catholic Church officials believed that speaking out would only make the situation worse for Christians there. However, after the bombings of school buses earlier this year, the invasion of the Baghdad church last month, the Catholic Church and other churches are becoming more vocal. In November, Cardinal Angelo Bagnaschi, the president of the Italian Bishops' Convention, promoted a day of solidarity with Iraqi Christians. On Sunday, November 19th, all Catholic churches were to include the prayers for persecuted Iraqi Christians, the first time this had ever happened. As the church in the West begins to awaken, it is now also time for Western political leaders to awaken as well. The White House does not seem to understand that Christians are under attack in the Middle East and praises those who are the attackers. In November, during a Muslim holy time, President Obama had a message to those traveling to the Hajj, or pilgrimage to Mecca. It is considered a sacred duty of every Muslim to travel there at least once. I'll make a note that non-Muslims are not allowed within the city limits of Mecca. President Obama said to those who are going to the Hajj, quote, "On behalf of the American people, we extend our best wishes during this Hajj season," and then he closed it in Arabic, Eid Mubarak and Hajj Mabrar. The pilgrims of the Hajj had a message for President Obama as well. It went like this: God is the greatest, death to Israel, death to America, were among the anti-Western, anti-Christian, and anti-Semitic slogans chanted in unison as nearly 2 million Muslims gathered in the desert of Arafat near Mecca, waiting for their turn to go into the city. There's a total disconnect from reality on the part of the political elite in the United States and their view of tribal Islam in the Middle East. During the Bush administration, we heard the chant of religion of peace over and over again. Now we are told by the media and political elites that most Muslims want democracy. Well, the Hajj pilgrims represent mainstream Islam, and the message was clear, and it had nothing to do with democracy. Mr. President, the time has come for a voice from the West to end the persecution of Christians and other religious minorities in the Middle East, and particularly in Iraq, where American blood has been spilled to form a government. Mr. President, you have extended your hand to the Islamic world and even addressed them in the language of your youth, Arabic. The Religious Freedom Coalition urges you to now ask the Islamic states and to show the same tolerance that Muslims are granted in this nation to the Christians that live amongst them. Thank you.